Already forgot.
Thanks, Sarah.
A lot of help I am this morning.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Del Mastro. I'm with the Small Business Development Center here out of Clark University in Worcester. For those of you who, I know some of you are our clients, but for those who are not, we are an organization funded by a couple of folks, by the federal government and state of Massachusetts. And our sole purpose is to work with small businesses. And that's really kind of with small businesses from all dimensions, from, hey, I've got an idea and I don't know how to bring it to a business, to I'm working with a couple of clients right now that are ready to tag out. They've been doing it for a while. They want to sell their business, but they're not quite sure how to sell their business. So we work kind of in all areas of businesses. Myself, I've run 4 different businesses over my career, and I joined the Small Business Center about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. So we're gonna take a journey through websites and how to make them effective for you. We're really going to touch some really high level type things. There are many components of this that could actually be webinars just in themselves, but what I want to do is kind of give you just a broad brush understanding of the value of a website and some of the things that you need to be working with. I'm going to say hi to Julie. Julie, haven't seen you in a while. So Julie actually has taken the journey with us and built a website with us. We work with our clients to build websites. We don't actually build them ourselves. We require you to do a lot of the uplifting, but we'll walk you through the process. I call out to Julie. She's one of our first clients that we did that with. All right, so now let's see if I can start this correctly. All right. So as we go through this today, if you please ask questions. The last thing I want to do is talk by myself for 1 hour. So if I say something that you don't understand or you want some clarification, please just either pipe in or put it in the chat window. Sarah's here to interrupt me if somebody puts something in the chat in case I miss it. All right, so let me just get all my screens set up. Get rid of my note to record, and here we go. All right, so full disclosure, this webinar that we're going to do today is part of a Grow with Google program. So I'm a certified Grow with Google partner, and Google has provided many pieces of this webinar for me to give to you. I don't know if you're a Google fan or not, but Google is the giant in the industry of search. And I'm not a huge Google fan. I actually don't like their products all that much, but you have to respect them when you're building a website. I just did a search this morning. 88% of all users use Google as their search engine. So that's obviously a number you can't ignore. And a lot of the tools that you're going to see here are tools provided by Google that help you optimize your website so that Google does find you when somebody puts in a search. That's my one caveat to begin, and off we go. So obviously in today's world, a lot of commerce is done online, right? And people find you by doing searches. They find you by going online, reading your website. So we have, well, you have access to these slides. Yes, I have access to the slides, and I have another handout that we'll give out at the end. So today's customers, as I'm sure most of you have heard, right, motivated by ease, convenience, and trust. Right? If you've got a website that's complicated, that doesn't have call to action buttons everywhere so that they can click, they're going to go to your site and they're going to go off your site in 3 seconds. So some of the stuff we'll talk about today is to how do you make that site somewhere where people will go and stay or go and achieve the goals that they want. And if you think about your habits, right? Customers often go to websites, in the moment of need. You think about something that you want, you hop on your phone, you do a search. If you can find it quickly and it's a good price, you're going to push that button to buy now, and a day later it's on your front doorstep. Things have changed drastically over the past 20 years, and the reality is that's where we are today. So we have to keep that in mind as we build our website. So a couple of things that I'm going to go through today. How will your site grow your business? Can search engines find your site? Is your site easy and convenient, for your customers? Is it organized, in a way that customers can easily flow through it and know where to go? And is it trustworthy? So we're going to go through kind of all of these things today. So when people talk about website design, most people start to think about kind of the graphical interface, or the graphical feeling of the website. But website design is much more than that. Obviously your website has got to look good, and if you've got the ability to hire a developer to put in some of the fancy stuff and the transitions and all that stuff, that's great, as long as it's appropriate for your business and for your website. But some of the basic components of a website design begin with your brand. Does your website have your logo on it, for number one? Two, is it reflective of the color schemes of your business? Do you have a particular font that you always use for your business? And if so, does your website use that font? Brand is all about consistency, always making sure you always use the same colors, you use the same fonts, you have the same look and feel. And then what are your call to action buttons that are on your site? We'll talk about this a little later on, but are there dead ends in your website? Do people get to pages on your website with nothing to do? No indicator as to where to go from there. So those are all components of a website design, and we'll talk a little more about that. All right. So whenever I'm working with our clients on building a website, we start off with, why do you want a website? What's the goal of your website? What are you trying to achieve? And it's funny, a lot of folks will just say, well, I just need to have a website out there. Well, what does that mean? And my guess is you need more than just a website out there. So what's the purpose of your site? Are you trying, so this is 6 examples of what your website may be trying to achieve. And it could be a combination of many of these. Are you trying to build your brand? Well, I think you're always trying to build your brand. You go back to the previous slide, your brand is important in anything and everything. Every time someone touches or views your business, your brand should be consistent. Are you trying to generate business? Do you have call to actions on your website that enable clients to either get in touch with you, to sign up for your services, or if you're in e-commerce, buy your product? And there's make sales. Re-engage customers. So a website isn't a one and done. Many folks think of their website as a means of getting clients. Well, once you have them, what are you providing on your website for them after they're a client with you? Do you have a members area, or maybe you're providing features that are just for your members? Maybe you've got a blog going, and it's that's the most common thing. People come back to your site to read your blog. Another thing that's on here, which I think is interesting and important, is for those of you who are hiring, what's on your website that's going to attract your employees? I don't know about you, but anytime I've ever applied for a job, I've gone out to the company's website and reviewed it and tried to get a feel of, is this a company I really want to work for? Well, for those of you who are hiring, does your website have any information out there for potential employees of your site? And then, If it's relevant to your business, does your site provide support? I ran a software company for many years. Provide support was a huge part of our website. Okay, so who is your audience? Most common answer, well, everybody's my customer. Not a good answer. It's pretty hard to build a website that really markets to everybody. So you're really, the best interest is to try to narrow your audience down and figure out who specifically you're trying to target with your website. And some of the things that you really need to think about, right? Think about your experiences on websites. What are the questions that your clients are asking? If you understand what they're asking, right, you understand what question needs to be answered when they reach your website. And that's really important. And it actually gets into the whole tie between doing a search on Google and having your website come up as the answer to that question. So as you build your website, you really got to think about, how do your clients act? How do they think? How do they live? What is their world? And does your site match their world? I got a little comment there in blue there. That your website serves two masters. Your clients, obviously one of those, but the others are all the other search engines that are out there. So again, I go back to that thing. People say to me, well, I don't need a website. Well, you do, because search engines need to find you. So if you don't feel as though your customers need to find you, and maybe you're a huge Facebook user or an Instagram or TikTok, and you feel that's where your audience is, you still need a website for the search engines to find you. Although search engines will pull up your Facebook profile. There's no better way than to tell Google who you are by having a really good website that kind of targets your business. So just keep in mind, websites serve two masters. And as we go through this today, you'll see some sections are about attracting your clients. Other sections are about making sure the search engines know about you. All right. So my guess is a lot of you have heard about SMART goals. So SMART goals, if you haven't, SMART goals are specific goals that are measurable, that are attainable, that are relevant, and are time bound. And so why do I bring this up here? Well, when you're building your website, or if you're making modifications to your website, or if you're running a marketing campaign. And so why do I mention marketing campaign? Your website is an extension of your marketing plan, right? You're going to use your website in a lot of your marketing plans. You're going to run a campaign on Facebook, and on that campaign, you're going to direct people to your website. Maybe it's to go buy something on your website or sign up for something on your website, but you're just understand that your website is part of your marketing plan. So as you go out and you create goals, and a couple of them listed here, right? I want to increase unique website visits by 20% over the next 2 months. All right. So time bound, next 2 months. Measurable. It is measurable because you know what your current traffic is, and you want to increase that by 20%. So as you build your website, change your website, or even just review your website, what are your SMART goals for your website? All right. You really should have them. You should be working on them on a continuous basis. My last slide has a little comment that says your website's a journey that really never ends. And so as you have your site, you really need to be continuously working on it. So create SMART goals for your website, and make sure that you know how to measure them for number one, and two, you put some kind of a time bound on it. And we'll get to some of the tools that'll help you achieve that. All right. So how will you measure success? So obviously it depends on what goals that you set. But as I said, there are tools that we'll get into in a minute that will help you from a website perspective understand what the dynamics of your traffic is and what people are doing on your website, which hopefully will help you measure the success of your SMART goals. So a couple other things that we've got up here, right? Track online sales, collect form submissions, monitor phone calls, or measure engagements. So just some of the examples. All right. Any questions to date so far? All right. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Google Analytics, but it is a tool that Google provides to monitor the traffic on your website. It's a phenomenal tool, but it's extremely complicated and complex. We can do an entire session, an hour and a half to 2 hour session on Google Analytics. All today I'm going to do is just kind of touch upon it and give you some direction on how to get to it. But if you do need help with this, that is something that we can help you with. But it's a free software provided by Google. It helps you identify which search terms are used to actually get to your website, which is a really helpful thing. You can see a whole bunch of demographics about your clients that are going to your site. Understand what content your audience is interested in, and evaluate which channels drive the most conversations. So what does that mean? What it means is that a lot of times, in one of the sections in Google Analytics, we'll actually show you the source. Where was the client just before they came to your website? So all of you asking for help, I need you to, if you're not a current client, we do need you to register. When you register, just say you want to work with me, and we can get you set up on that. If you're an existing client, just talk to your current advisor and tell them that you want to work with me, and we'll do that. One of the neat things, obviously, of being at Clark University is we have access to interns. And so I always have a marketing intern working with me to help me go through all of this stuff. All right. So let's keep going on. So to set up Google Analytics, like I said, it's a free tool. You can go to analytics.google.com or g.co/analytics. Again, we're going to provide you with these slides, so you don't have to write it down right now. But this is where you would go to get set up. One of the things that Google Analytics does require is that they're going to give you a code, and you've got to embed that code in the header of your website. So for those of you who have no idea what that means, who you would have to go back to whoever created your website and allow them to embed it into your header. Or if you're using one of the common platforms like Squarespace or Wix or Shopify, we probably can help you do that. All of those tools provide a very simple way of embedding a Google Analytics code into it. And once you embed that code into the website, that's when Google can start tracking the traffic on your website, and then the data shows up in Google Analytics about a week later. And then obviously it's continuous. Just a little side note with Google Analytics, for those of you who've had a website for many years, if you signed up for Google Analytics prior to 2020, it's called Google, I forget what they called it, Universal Analytics maybe is the old version. There is now a new version as of 2021. And there is a conversion process to convert yourself over to the new platform. All right, so that was Sarah. So some examples of Google Analytics. I use Google Analytics quite a bit. When I ran my businesses, I just thought this was a phenomenal tool to give me insight as to, how are people using my website. So some of the things is it has a real-time thing. It actually shows you who's currently on your website, and that's kind of fun to kind of watch as people come onto your website and the paths that they may take to get to your website. But all those analytics are right there. As I mentioned, it talks about, where did your clients come from? So if you're running a Facebook campaign and they click on that campaign and they go to your website, so Facebook is kind of that acquisition site from which it came from. So again, as I said, this is all part of your marketing plan, right? So if you decide to create a post on Facebook and you boost that post for a week, all right, you then and part of that post is to bring them to your website to either buy something or do something. You come back into well, first, Facebook has its own analytics. Well, Google will also show you some analytics of that as well. The nice thing is, and whenever you do a campaign, you try to make it unique so you can track the success of it. So maybe your post is directing people to a specific page on your website. What's really neat about Google Analytics, and it's under the engagement process or the engagement section here, you can actually look at that page, see all of the people who entered your website at that page, and then where did they go from that? How many of them just left when they got to that page? How many of them then went on to do other things? And if you see everybody gets to that page and leaves, well, then you've got some work to do on that page because you didn't really accomplish what you were hoping for, in theory. So again, Google Analytics, very powerful tool, very complex, a little bit difficult to get set up. They use terminology that makes absolutely no sense to me, but it's Google. So we can try to help you get set up with this if you get stuck with that. So then there's another tool, which is yet even more complex, called Google Optimize. And I personally have never used this tool. I actually didn't know it existed until I started to do this presentation. It's a pretty complex tool that's out there that allows you to do what-if scenarios and test results to see which was effective, which was not effective. And it's all about changing your website and modifying your website to make it more user-friendly. And so Google provides you with a tool to do that. That's the extent of my knowledge of what it is. The comments that I have is this tool includes A/B testing, multivariant testing, and redirect tests. And it integrates seamlessly with Google Analytics. So there's going to be a section in Analytics that then show you the results of these tests that you're running. I'm going to leave it at that. All right. A great website is search friendly. So everything we talked about so far is about your client's experience with your website. Now we're going to talk about SEO, search engine optimization, right? So Google, Bing, what's the duck one? Duck something. There's a whole bunch of search engines out there, and they all have their own algorithms. But it's important that you kind of understand what it is that they're looking for, and I'll try to kind of walk you through some of that stuff right now. 100% growth in the search of near me. So, pizza place near me, or co-working space near me, massage therapist near me. It's becoming one of the most popular searches out there. And for those of you that have localized businesses, this is huge, right? You need to make sure you're showing up in that near me search when clients do that. And so what does that mean? That means there's got to be something on your website which helps Google understand where you do business. One of the things that we're not going to cover in this webinar is Google My Business Profile. That in itself is another whole thing, but it is a means for you to tell Google who you are, who your business is, where your business is. It is designed for storefronts for the most part. If you've got a brick and mortar, it fits in very well with Google My Business or Google Business Profile. If you're an online retailer, then no. They actually almost prohibit you from using it. It's very hard to trick them into letting you use it. But it's a great way of telling Google who you are, where your business is. Once you do that, now they know where your business is. Now you start to show up in the near me type things. If you don't have a Google My Business profile, then on your website, you need to be listing in a professional way, let's say, the towns that you work in or the regions that you work in. So as Google crawls your website, they understand where your location is. So this screen, I mean, all of us know it. You do a search, if Google finds a business that matches your profile, it's going to put that business, up on the right. Ads are on the top, organic search results are on the bottom. Ultimate goal, you want your business showing up there on the right, if it's possible. So, characteristics of a search-friendly website. When Google does a search, right? Or when you do a search, sorry. And when Google tries to resolve that search, it evaluates hundreds of things about your website to determine if you are a good candidate for the results of the search. Some of the things that it looks at is fast load time. Believe it or not, that's one of the key elements of search characteristic returned. Is your website fast? If it's slow, Google ignores it, especially if it's slow on a mobile device. So one of the things we'll talk about in a little bit is making sure your website is responsive to both phones, tablets, and desktops. So fast load time, one of the key factors in having a search-friendly website. Useful content, obviously. Whatever the client's searching on or the person searching on, does your website answer that question? So go back to the first slide that I showed you. What's the question that your clients are asking? Has your website answered that question in a way that a Google bot can make the connection between what someone's searching for, what your website has for content? Text links, an interesting thing, right? So these are links that you have on your website that, and it's bidirectional, that may link to other helpful information based on that search query. And the other way around is your website listed on credible and reputable websites that Google can say, oh, this person here has got your website linked. That's a positive. So if any of you are members of Chamber of Commerce, they put you can sign in and put your business information in with a link to your website. That's called a backlink. That's there. Chamber of Commerce, pretty reputable organizations. Google respects that. You get a check mark, right? When it does one of the 200 search criterias for your website. So, it's funny, page titles and descriptions, you think about when you look in your browser, right? And you got all those tabs on your browser. What's the actual text that you put in that tab? That's actually important. That's something Google looks at to say, all right, is there a match here between what this person is querying and what you've got in your browsers? Well, what about titles that you've got on your page? So those are called header tags in the techie world of building a website. What are your header tags? And are they relevant to what your clients are searching for? Information architect, we're going to get into this in a little bit. How is your website organized? Is it organized in a meaningful fashion? And then is your website working for all the different browsers and devices that are out there? So as I mentioned, make sure that your website works for a tablet, works for a phone, and works for a PC, a desktop. And if you're using, if you use some of today's platforms, I mentioned, Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, those are the probably the most common ones out there. They are all responsive platforms. If you build your sites on them, their technology automatically makes your website work for all of those platforms. If you go the path of having someone build you a website, a lot of folks will use WordPress to build websites. It's a lot more work in that world to make it responsive to all platforms and to all search browsers, but surely can be done. You just got to have a good developer to do that for you. So there's another neat tool that's out there, and it's called Google Search Console. Again, not the most easiest tool to understand, but really an important tool. I mentioned that, Google every night goes out and scours the internet for new websites, old websites. It reads the website. It tries to index all of the material on your website so that when searches are done, it then hits that index and sees if your site's a match. All right. This particular tool that Google provides is a means of understanding what Google found on your website. All right, so if you sign into this Search Console, again, free tool by Google, you can actually see all of the pages of your website that Google found. And did they find any errors on those pages? And there's a whole host of things that are classified as errors, and they do describe them in this tool. If Google finds enough errors on a page, it actually discards that page. So I was working with a client the other day, and we happened to notice that their homepage was in error by Google. And we found that out through the Search Console, and we're able to go in and fix the issue. We had a bad link on the page, and that I guess bothered Google. So we got rid of that link, and we asked Google to kind of re-index it, and it was able to do that. So with this tool, confirm that Google can find and crawl your site. There's a thing called a sitemap that all websites have. It is a kind of a hierarchical view of your site, all of the pages and all of the links on your pages. It's kind of a roadmap of your website. Google will read that to determine the pages of your website. So this tool gives you a good idea. Number one, has Google ever crawled your website? When was the last time it crawled your website? Did it find any errors when it crawled your website? And then it actually provides you with a means of, hey, I've made a whole bunch of changes to my website. I don't want to wait for Google to find those changes. I want to force Google to go out and index my site now. You can put in a request to have your site re-indexed. It doesn't happen instantly. It probably will happen within the next day or two. And then there's a little note here that says, if Google ever does a crawl and they find a problem, you can actually have it email you. You know that there's been an issue. Typical Google, and in many ways, I can't blame them. In order to use any of their tools, you have to have a Google email. Doesn't have to be your business email. So in my case, I've always been a Microsoft person. I always had my emails with Microsoft, but I had to have a Google, and it could be just a straight Gmail email address. You have to have a Google email address to use Google products. It is what it is, right? All right. All right, to sign up for Search Console, again, I'm going to provide you with these slides. But this is the path that you would go. You would put in your website under domain, and you can actually tell it, here's my sitemap, use this one, or you can give it a URL as to where your sitemap is. If you don't know how to find your sitemap, you need to either do some research to find it if you're using one of the platforms like Squarespace or Wix, or you can ask your developer and they can tell you where that is or what the URL for that is. Another interesting tool is if you go out to Google search, right, and you type site, the word site, S-I-T-E colon, and your website, it's a quick way of seeing what Google knows about your website. It'll actually return all of the pages in the descriptions of those pages that it found on your website. So it's something I would recommend all of you do, not right now, but when you're done, do that on your website to see. It's a quick way of seeing what does Google know about my website. It's interesting.
Do you mind repeating? Hi, Rob. Do you
Hi.
mind repeating that
The term?
the how to find it?
So it's right down here on the bottom of the screen here. You go to Google search.
Oh,
right?
I'm sorry, it was blocked on my, okay.
Oh, all right. So if you just go to google.com, right, and in their search little window, you type site, S-I-T-E colon, and then your website, it'll return what Google knows of your website. If nothing comes back, then you got a problem. Often what I find is certain pages don't come back. And what that tells me is there's problems on those pages. And I need to go into Search Console to then see what those errors are and then try to fix them. I'll be the first to admit there are some issues I see on Search Console. I have no idea how to fix them. So you do your best. So a great site, a great website is convenient. I think we all know and appreciate this. Our attention spans have gotten pretty short. If we go to a website and we don't find an answer quickly, we leave and we go find another site that answers the question quicker. Or if we're trying to buy something on a website and we find it to be complicated, we abandon our cart and we go somewhere else. And you think about the giants out there like Amazon. It's pretty darn simple, right? I can pull up my phone. I can actually take a picture of something that broke and it'll bring me to that item. I can do buy now and a day later it's on my door. Can't get any more convenient than that. So how is your website? For those of you that are doing e-commerce online, or for those of you that are taking reservations or taking appointments online, how good is your website? So something to to really look at and think about, and kind of evaluate. So ease, is it a responsive design? So again, that's that theory of if I look at it on my phone or if I look at it on my PC, it's still useful, right? In the olden days, 10 years ago, many sites weren't responsive and, there were these tiny little words on your phone. It was just basically useless. We've come a long way since then, and most web providers out there are responsive, but just make sure yours works as you expect on your phone. How simple is it to make payments on your website? Shipping options, what do you have? I was working with a client the other day and we were talking about shipping and she didn't necessarily want to pay for, next day shipping. But, again, we've been tainted by some of the giants out there, right? Of, I order something, I don't expect it to show up 2 weeks from today. I want it tomorrow. So what are you offering your clients as far as ease of payment, ease of shipping? Curbside pickup became a huge thing, born out of COVID. Do you offer curbside pickup? So maybe you don't want to deal with shipping costs, and you only offer curbside pickup. Okay, what does that look like? How easy is that for your clients to use? And then they have a comment here about virtual consultations. How do you provide any kind of chat bot, on your website? If people have questions, can they ask a chat bot? Do they have a contact us form? How responsive are you to that contact us request? All of these things are things to think about for your website. So I've talked quite a bit about responsive designs. Again, just go in and look at your website on your phone, look at it on your PC or your laptop, and just make sure it's reacting as you expect it to be. And is it easy to use? Is it easy to navigate? I mean, when you have a phone, and you've got to click and scroll, you've just got to make sure there's space enough between items that your finger isn't hitting the wrong thing, that if you've got a phone number, listed on your website, does it have code behind it? Because if you're looking at it on a phone, you can click on it and it should make the call right then and there. You get that little pop-up window that says, do you want to call this number? Just make sure all that code is built into your website, or email. If you've got an email on your website, make sure there's code behind that. So if a user clicks on that, their mail system pops up and it's already pre-filled with your email message. Again, I've talked about payments. Make your payment process simple. Some of the things that these CMS, these website tools provide is insights into how many abandoned carts that you had. Really important for you to be monitoring that. If you find a lot of people, for those of you that have e-commerce, if people are getting to the point of putting stuff in the cart and then leaving, well, there's something wrong, probably. I mean, obviously, some people are just going to put it in the cart to see what the shipping costs are going to be or something like that. But if you start to see a trend and you start to see a lot of people that are abandoning your cart on your site, then something's probably wrong. Your process probably isn't smooth enough. And, you need to experience it yourself. Go in and buy one of your products and see how smooth does it really flow through. Are you providing them, like this particular screen provides all kinds of payment options for them? Are you providing those options for your clients, or is it just one option that they have? Where are we in time? All right, we're running close to the end of time. So a couple other things, recommended purchases, you may also like, so again, if you're running an e-commerce site, there's these things that you can have. I'm going to speed it up a little because we got a bunch of more slides to get to, and I noticed it's already quarter of. We talked about curbside pickup, flexible delivery options, and virtual consultation. So I think we already talked about those. Think mobile first. There actually is yet another tool provided by Google. It's there's the URL right there. You can go in and put your website in, and it'll actually come back and tell you your website's mobile friendly or not. If it is, it says, life's good. If it's unusable on a mobile device, it'll actually give you some reasons why they found it to be unusable. And you can see, if you don't have a mobile phone, which most of us do, it'll show you what it looks like on a mobile phone and then provide you links to other resources. So again, I'm going to provide these slides, but you can go into this URL and it'll tell you. It's a quick way of trying to test if your site's mobile ready, or at least in the eyes of Google. If you're a tech head and you use Chrome, you can actually go into Chrome Inspector, and there's this little button right here that you can click on, and it'll show the current website as a mobile device. Not too many people are going to go down that path. A great website is organized. I think this kind of goes without saying, like everything in life, right? As long as it's structured in a reasonable sense, and it flows nicely, then it's a much better user experience, for your users. All right. So make sure as you design, this is called a website framework, or a wireframe. It's just a diagram of, here's your home page, what are your menu items, and under your menu items, what are the sub pages underneath that. So when you're building a website, this is actually one of the first places we start. Before we even get to writing code or designing the thing, we talk about what's the wireframe of your website, what's the content that you're going to have on each of these pages, And really, what's the message you're trying to get across on each of these pages? Every page should have a call to action. As I said, no dead ends. I don't want to get to a page and then not have anywhere to go or an action to do. That's how you lose people. Assign each page a clear call to action. Use visual elements, so graphics are a great thing, buttons are a great thing, and again, no dead ends, as I mentioned. And then as you go forward and you start to add on to your website over time, go back to that wireframe that you had and start there again. Okay, I've got this new content I want to put on my website. Where does it fit? Where does logically it make the most sense? Do I add another menu option? Or what I'm trying to do now is really a subcategory of something I've always done. So great example would be, I've got an About Us tab, right? And when you start off your business, it's really just you. So it's your story and some information, about why maybe you created your business. But now you're hiring employees. So maybe About Us, there's another page which is targeted towards people who may want to come work for you. So meet our staff, or here's our mission statement, or something like that. So as you add content to your website, go back to your wireframe, determine where it belongs, and then add it to your website. Because that's, going back to Google, right? Google is all about, how does your website flow? Does it make the most sense? Another tool that Google provides is called Google Trends. And so if you want to understand what the world is searching on, this is a great tool to use. Another free tool that's out there, but you can put topics in here. You can put search phrases in here. You can narrow it by region. You can narrow it by demographics, and it'll tell you what are the how popular is that term that you've put in there. The thing, if you think about, like, I used to run a co-working space, and so I used to think about, okay, what are people searching on? So shared workspace. So I'd come into Google Trends and I'd put shared workspace in here and get some insight of, is that really a popular term people are searching for in our area? And a lot of times the assumptions I made were wrong. And you come into this tool and they help you validate your assumptions and even guide you towards what are the key words that really should be on your website, because this is what the world's searching on right now. So this is a great tool. These are one of those tools that you can lose a half a day in, just playing around searching terms. So again, how can it help? It can help you pick out and understand the trends in the current world, and specifically about your business. Let's see. 404 page. So I'm not sure how many of you actually know what that is. But if somebody were to type a path, your URL, and then tag on a /about me, and that happened to be the wrong URL, what your website will do is respond with what's called a 404 page. Why 404, I don't know. But you want to make sure that you've got a very user-friendly 404 page on your website. Some people, what they do is you can direct your tool. If you're using Squarespace, Wix, or Shopify, they have tools that say, if a 404 exists, take them to this page. A lot of people will just have them go back to their home page. Others want to make this kind of a friendly or a fun page. So they put a page up that says, something like, oops. It's up to you, and it has all to do about your brand and the way that you want your website to come across. But just make sure you have a good solution to this, because if you've had a website that's been up for many years, sometimes you've taken pages down, but people still have those links, and they click on those links and it brings them to their website and they get a 404 page. If you haven't really worked on this, it's generally a pretty ugly page that you want to work on and make sure it's a good page. So trustworthy websites, really the key here on trustworthy is that it is it's called the secure socket layer SSL certificate. So if you ever notice, right, you have HTTP and you have HTTPS. And when you're on a site that is HTTPS, you'll see the little lock up on the URL. And what that means is it's a secure website. Most platforms today provide HTTPS sites. Many browsers today actually block non-HTTPS sites. So just make sure, again, if you've got somebody creating your website, you know, a nephew who's created your website, just make sure they've made it secure. All right, very important, especially if you're taking payments over the website. You know, it's got to be HTTPS. And what that does is it creates a secure channel between you and your client who are accessing your website so that it can't be hacked. Their transactions can't be intercepted and can't be hacked. So other things, you know, other things that you can do, business reviews. I always tell my clients, make sure you have you know, feedback from your clients on your website. Make sure you can show those ratings. If you've got an e-commerce site, turn on you know, product ratings so people can rate your products. And then of course make sure that there's contact information on your website. You know, one of the call to actions should be call us, email us, contact us. That should be anywhere and everywhere on your website. So again, no dead ends, no getting to the bottom of the page, not knowing how to contact you. A lot of folks will put it in the header of their website or in the footer of their website so that those two components are always available, and that, you know, you can always get to those things. So just as a kind of review, making sure your website is goal-oriented, search-friendly, convenient for your users, mobile-friendly, organized well, and is trustworthy. And really, that's the bottom line message here about, you know, how to make your website work for you. You know, your website's a big piece of your business. There is if you go out to YouTube and you do a search on Grow with Google, a lot of their presentations are out there. A lot of their documentation on how to use all of these platforms are out there. So it's if you're really interested and you want to, you know, dive deeper into all of these things, you know, I would go out to YouTube and search on Grow with Google, or even just search on Google Search Console or Google Trends to make sure. So your website's a journey. It's never done. It's always evolving, and it's always part of your marketing plan. You know, you want to drive traffic to your website on a fairly regular basis. And again, the purpose is all the way back to the beginning slides. What is the purpose of your website? And so you want to make sure you continue to, you know, to ensure that it's always answering that question, and that question is always relevant. As time goes on, those questions change, your business changes, your website needs to change with that. All right. So it's always evolving. And again, it's never done. So question on accessibility and ADD compliant. I don't know a significant amount about that. What I do know is that for those that are sight impaired, one of the key things to make your site ADA compliant for those individuals or for that demographic is whenever you have an image on your screen on your website, all the providers allow you to put a description of that that image, so that when the visually impaired come to your site, they have special browsers that will then read your website. When it gets to an image, it'll read that description of your image. And that's actually something that Google reviews about your website. How accessible is it for individuals like that? So I know that's one of the components. I like I said, I don't have a lot of experience in making websites ADA compliant, right? That's the one that I do know. Of neurodiversity, so it is especially important to me. Yeah. Okay. We're coming up on the hour, 3 more minutes. If you're interested in becoming our clients and working with us, if you're not already a client, there's a QR code right there to scan, and that brings you to our registration page. If you want to have more information, you can go out to our website. Within a day or two, this particular webinar will be on our website for you to review again. Sarah, you'll send out the handouts and the things. And would you have anything else for us? Will you be sending out a review or no?
I'll send out the slide deck and just a quick 3-minute survey, which is helpful for us to see how you all enjoyed this website. And the webinar also gives you an opportunity to recommend any other topics you would like to see covered for future webinars. So I'll send out links for Rob and registration if you miss this. So it'll be all covered.
So someone put in their mobile friendly test URL not available to Google. That's not a good thing. So what that tells me is, for some reason, Google can't find your website. I think that's what that means. And so you've got to go back to that search console tool that Google has, and that should kind of guide you through why it can't find your website. If for some reason it hasn't found it, you can put in your site index and force it to find your website. Let's see who put that in there. Joy. That's something you want to definitely look into. Or like I had mentioned, if you go to Google search and you do site : in your website, my guess is you're going to get that same answer, that the URL was not available to Google. So that's a problem. That means in the world of Google, at least, you stand a very small chance of showing up in a search result if Google doesn't.
Yeah, but I can Google it. If I go to my website link, Google it can show me to my website, and I also verifies the ownership.
It verifies ownership how?
And there's an instruction. I went through the instruction, and because I purchased a domain name in GoDaddy.
Okay.
So through GoDaddy, I set up, the domain name property. So already verified ownership. And
So, I mean, buying a domain is very different than having a website. So those are two very different things. So yes, you own the domain and your domain is pointing to your website. But what Google is, at least from what I can see here, you did a search, you told Google your URL, and it came back and said it doesn't know what that is. So there's a problem there between you and Google and your website. And so that search console that Google has is one means of trying to figure out, why is there a problem?
Okay, Google console. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so domains is an interesting thing. We buy our domain and don't fully appreciate what it is. When you buy a domain, there is a whole bunch of components to a domain that you never see. They're kind of in the background. There are a bunch of records. So when somebody types, www.msbdc@clarku.com, there's a whole bunch of transactions that happen. When you type that, the internet world goes out and says, okay, who owns this domain? Okay, Clark, the MSBDC at Clark owns it. Okay, what is the CNAME records? Where is their website? So there's a record in there that says, oh, their website's over here. It's hosted by Squarespace. So go over to Squarespace and tell Squarespace I want to see this website. So there's a whole bunch of transactions that happen and are affiliated to your domain. If you happen to have an email address that is with your domain, those are yet different records. Those are called MX records out there. So when someone sends you an email, we registered our domain with Google. So when someone sends us an email, Google responds and says, "Oh, I own this one. Oh, here's the MX record. It's being hosted by Microsoft. Go to Microsoft. They're going to resolve this for you." So there's a whole bunch of things that are behind the scenes with a domain, but domain purchase is obviously different than your website. The two do link together, obviously, but that's it. All right. Any other questions that I can help you guys with while I have you? All right. It's a quiet bunch today. I know it's early. 9 o'clock.
Very
is
quiet
early for everybody. All right. So, if you have any questions and you want to chat with me, I'm more than happy to chat with anybody about this. It is complex. There's so many components to it. That's why there are professionals out there who make a living doing this. I'm a tech head, so I have an interest in this, and I've in prior lives have done this, and that's where I get my knowledge. But like I said, if you want to work with us, just let us know, and we'd be happy to help you out. If
Thank
not,
you.
all right. If not, I hope you all have a good day, and I hope to see you in future webinars.
Awesome. Thank you.
All righty. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Sarah.
Good to see you, Julie.